Sebastian Cross's fingers trembled as he stared at the photograph that had just slipped from Isabella Hart's leather satchel. A photograph that showed the woman he'd been falling in love with pointing a gun at a man whose face he recognized from FBI wanted posters. The same woman who'd been teaching his 8-year-old daughter mathematics and literature for the past 6 months, who made homemade cookies and read bedtime stories with a voice like honey, who'd kissed him just last night with lips that tasted like promises and forever. The photograph was dated 3 years ago, and scrawled across the back in Isabella's unmistakable handwriting were the words, "Prague job completed. $2 million transferred. Target eliminated." His blood turned to ice as footsteps echoed in the hallway above. Isabella returning from tucking Emma into bed, completely unaware that her carefully constructed world was about to implode. Sebastian shoved the photograph back into her bag, his mind racing through every tender moment they'd shared, every laugh, every gentle touch that had slowly healed the wounds left by his ex-wife's betrayal. Had it all been an elaborate lie? Hey beautiful souls. Welcome back to my channel where love collides with danger and nothing is ever what it seems. I can feel your hearts racing already. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Are you team trust your heart or team trust your instincts? And if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, you're about to witness a story that will have you questioning every person who's ever walked into your life. Don't you dare click away. Sebastian Cross had built his fortune on reading people, on detecting lies before they could destroy him. At 34, he commanded a tech empire worth $8 billion, employed 15,000 people across 4 continents, and could spot corporate espionage from a mile away. But standing in his Manhattan penthouse library, surrounded by first-edition books and the scent of Isabella's lavender perfume that still lingered in the air, he felt more vulnerable than he had since his divorce 2 years ago. The soft sound of her heels on marble grew closer. In 30 seconds, she would walk through that door with her warm brown eyes and that smile that made him forget every reason he'd sworn off love. She'd ask about his day, listen with genuine interest as he talked about board meetings and acquisition deals, then suggest they share a glass of wine while she graded Emma's assignments. It was a routine that had become the highlight of Sebastian's existence, a pocket of peace in a life dominated by corporate warfare and single parenthood. Isabella Hart had appeared in their lives like an answered prayer, a Cambridge-educated tutor with impeccable references who could challenge Emma's brilliant mind while nurturing her emotional needs with infinite patience. But if the photograph was real, if Isabella was actually a professional killer hiding behind the facade of a gentle teacher, then Sebastian had invited a viper into his daughter's bedroom. "Sebastian!" Isabella's voice drifted through the doorway, soft and melodic as always. "Emma wants you to say goodnight. She's asking if you'll read the next chapter of Harry Potter." Sebastian forced his expression into something resembling normalcy as Isabella appeared in the library doorway. She wore a simple cream sweater and dark jeans, her chestnut hair falling in loose waves around her shoulders. Everything about her radiated warmth and authenticity, from her makeup-free face to the slight flour smudge on her sleeve from the cookies she'd baked with Emma after dinner. She looked like exactly what she claimed to be, a dedicated educator who'd left her position at an elite private school to provide individualized attention to gifted children. She looked nothing like a woman who could put a bullet between someone's eyes from 100 yards away. "Of course," Sebastian managed, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind. "I'll be right up." Isabella's expression grew concerned as she studied his face. "Are you all right? You seem tense." "Just work stress," Sebastian lied, hating how easily deception rolled off his tongue. But then again, if Isabella could lie about being an assassin for 6 months, perhaps honesty was overrated. "Maybe I can help you relax later," Isabella said with a shy smile that made Sebastian's chest tight with conflicting emotions. "I found a new recipe for that chamomile tea you liked." The innocent offer felt like a knife twist. How many times had she made him tea, prepared his meals, sat beside him on quiet evenings? If she was truly a killer, she'd had countless opportunities to poison him. Why hadn't she? Unless he wasn't the target. Sebastian's blood chilled as a new possibility occurred to him. What if Isabella's mission wasn't to kill him, but to get close to him? What if she was after information about his company's military contracts, his government connections, his access to classified technology that could be worth billions on the black market? Or worse, what if Emma was the target? "Sebastian!" Isabella stepped closer, her hand reaching out to touch his arm. "You're scaring me. What's wrong?" Sebastian jerked away from her touch as if it burned. and he saw hurt flash across Isabella's features before she could hide it. The reaction looked genuine, but then again, a professional operative would be trained to display authentic emotions on command. "I need to check on Emma," Sebastian said curtly, brushing past Isabella toward the door. "Sebastian, wait." Isabella caught his arm, her fingers gentle but firm. "Please tell me what's happened. Did someone threaten you today? Is the company in danger?" The questions came too quickly, too specifically. A normal person would ask if he was feeling ill or if she'd done something wrong. But Isabella immediately jumped to threats and corporate espionage. Exactly what a trained killer would want to know about. "Why would you assume someone threatened me?" Sebastian asked carefully. Isabella's eyes widened slightly, a micro-expression that could indicate either surprise or calculation. "Because I know you, Sebastian. You're not the type of man to let ordinary stress affect you this way. You've handled billion-dollar acquisitions without breaking a sweat. This is something bigger." She was right, of course. Sebastian had perfected the art of maintaining composure under pressure. But Isabella's insight into his character could be evidence of either genuine care or professional observation. "I should say good night to Emma," Sebastian repeated, pulling away from Isabella's touch. As he climbed the stairs to his daughter's bedroom, Sebastian's mind raced through every interaction he'd had with Isabella over the past 6 months. Her arrival in their lives had seemed serendipitous. Emma's previous tutor had quit suddenly, and Isabella had appeared within days with stellar qualifications and immediate availability. Too convenient? Emma's room was bathed in the soft glow of her night light, and Sebastian's heart clenched as he saw his daughter's trusting face peek out from under her covers. At 8 years old, Emma was brilliant beyond her years, but emotionally vulnerable after her mother's abandonment. She bonded with Isabella immediately, finally having a maternal figure who didn't disappoint her. If Isabella was using Emma to get to him, Sebastian would destroy her. "Daddy!" Emma's face lit up as he entered her room. "Isabella said you'd read more Harry Potter. We're at the part where Harry finds out about his parents." Sebastian forced a smile as he settled beside his daughter's bed, opening the well-worn book to their bookmark. As he read about Harry's journey to uncover the truth about his family's past, Sebastian couldn't help but see parallels to his own situation. How well did he really know the people in his life? How many secrets were hiding behind familiar faces? "Daddy!" Emma's sleepy voice interrupted his dark thoughts. "Do you think Harry's going to be okay? Even though bad people are trying to hurt him?" The innocent question hit Sebastian like a physical blow. "What makes you ask that, sweetheart?" "Isabella said that sometimes people we trust turn out to be different than we thought," Emma murmured, her eyelids growing heavy. "But she also said that love is stronger than lies, and good people always find a way to protect the people they care about." Sebastian's blood froze. Had Isabella been preparing Emma for something? Was this conversation part of a larger manipulation? "When did Isabella tell you that?" Sebastian asked, keeping his voice gentle despite the alarm bells screaming in his head. "Today, when we were talking about the story," Emma yawned. "She said that Harry's lucky because even though his parents can't protect him anymore, he has other people who love him enough to keep him safe." Sebastian kissed his daughter's forehead, his mind churning with new questions and fears. Was Isabella trying to tell Emma that Sebastian couldn't protect her? Was she positioning herself as Emma's true protector, creating emotional dependency that could be weaponized later? "Sweet dreams, princess," Sebastian whispered, turning off Emma's lamp and leaving her door slightly ajar. In the hallway, Sebastian pulled out his phone and sent a text to his head of security. "Run a deeper background check on Isabella Hart. Priority 1. I need everything: financials, travel records, employment history, social connections. Everything." The response came within minutes. "Understood. Should I implement elevated security protocols?" Sebastian hesitated. If Isabella was truly dangerous, increasing security might tip her off that he was suspicious. But if she wasn't, and he was wrong about the photograph, he'd be destroying the best relationship he'd had since his divorce based on paranoia. "Discreet surveillance only," Sebastian replied. "And Jack, if she poses any threat to Emma, I want to know immediately." Sebastian pocketed his phone and headed back downstairs, his mind made up. He would confront Isabella about the photograph directly. If she had an explanation that made sense, he'd apologize and try to rebuild the trust he'd just shattered. If she didn't, Sebastian paused at the top of the stairs as he heard voices from the library below, Isabella's soft tones mixing with a deeper voice he didn't recognize. Someone else was in his home, moving silently, Sebastian descended halfway down the stairs until he could see into the library. Isabella stood with her back to the doorway, speaking in rapid, hushed tones to a man in a dark suit who definitely didn't belong in Sebastian's home. "The timeline has moved up," the stranger was saying. "You need to complete the extraction within 48 hours. "I told you, I need more time," Isabella replied, her voice carrying a steel edge Sebastian had never heard before. "He's starting to trust me, but if I push too hard now." "Trust is a luxury we can't afford," the man interrupted. "Cross is getting too close to the truth about Prague. If he connects you to that operation before you've secured the package, everything we've worked for will be destroyed." Sebastian's heart hammered against his ribs as the pieces clicked into place. The photograph wasn't just evidence of Isabella's past. It was connected to something happening right now. Some kind of extraction operation, with Sebastian as the target. But what package were they after? "I understand the stakes," Isabella said quietly. "But Sebastian isn't just some mark anymore. His daughter trusts me. I've grown attached to both of them, and if something goes wrong—" "Attachment is weakness," the man said coldly. "You know better than anyone what happens to operatives who forget their priorities. Complete the mission, Isabella, or someone else will complete it for you." The threat was clear, and Sebastian saw Isabella's shoulders tense with what looked like fear. "Give me 72 hours, Isabella said finally. "I'll have the package and be gone before Cross realizes what happened." The man seemed to consider this, then nodded curtly. 72 hours. "After that, we do this the hard way." Sebastian heard footsteps moving toward the library's French doors that led to the terrace. He had seconds to get back upstairs before Isabella discovered him eavesdropping. But as he turned to flee, his phone buzzed with an incoming call. The ringtone echoed through the silent house like an alarm, and Sebastian heard the conversation below stop abruptly. "Sebastian!" Isabella's voice called out, now laced with suspicion. "Is that you?" Sebastian had two choices: pretend he'd been upstairs the entire time, or confront Isabella with what he'd overheard. Either way, his peaceful life with the woman he'd been falling in love with was over. As footsteps hurried toward the staircase, Sebastian realized he was about to discover whether Isabella Hart was the gentle teacher who'd stolen his heart, or the professional killer who'd been playing the longest game of his life. The only question now was whether he'd live long enough to protect his daughter from the truth. Sebastian stood frozen on the staircase as Isabella appeared at the bottom, her face a mask of careful composure that couldn't quite hide the tension around her eyes. The gentle teacher was gone, replaced by someone calculating and alert, someone who looked exactly like the woman in that photograph. "I thought I heard your phone," Isabella said, her voice steady but her gaze scanning Sebastian's face for signs of suspicion. "Conference call from Tokyo," Sebastian lied smoothly, descending the stairs with forced casualness. "You know how it is, billionaires never sleep." Isabella smiled, but Sebastian caught the subtle way her body remained coiled, ready for action. How had he missed these details before? The way she always positioned herself with a clear view of exits, the unconscious habit of assessing threats in any room she entered, the perfect posture that suggested military or martial arts training. "Is everything all right?" Sebastian asked, noting that Isabella's leather satchel, the one that had contained the photograph, was now zipped securely shut. "You seemed tense when I went upstairs." "Just tired," Isabella replied, but her eyes flickered toward the French doors. "Long day of lesson planning. I should probably head home soon." Sebastian's chest tightened with a complex mixture of dread and longing. Despite everything he'd discovered, despite the conversation he'd overheard, part of him still wanted to pull Isabella into his arms and pretend none of this was happening. The past 6 months had been the happiest of his life since his divorce, and the thought of losing that peace felt like losing a limb. "Stay," Sebastian said quietly. "Please. We should talk." Isabella's expression grew wary. "About what?" Sebastian moved closer, studying the face he'd memorized over countless quiet evenings. Isabella had arrived in their lives when Sebastian was drowning in the aftermath of his ex-wife Natasha's betrayal, a woman who'd married him for his money, cheated with his business partner, and abandoned their daughter without a second thought. Isabella had been everything Natasha wasn't: genuine, nurturing, intellectually stimulating, seemingly uninterested in his wealth. But what if that had all been an act? "About us," Sebastian said finally. "About what's happening between us. About the fact that I'm falling in love with you, and I think you feel the same way." Isabella's composure cracked slightly, vulnerability flashing across her features before she could hide it. Sebastian, I know you feel it too, Sebastian continued, taking another step closer. The way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. The way you light up when Emma hugs you. The way you've been healing something in this house that I thought was permanently broken. Sebastian reached out to touch Isabella's face, and she didn't pull away. Her skin was soft and warm, exactly as he remembered from last night when they'd kissed in this same room while Emma slept peacefully upstairs. You're right, Isabella whispered, her eyes filling with unshed tears. I do feel it. More than I should, more than I'm allowed to. The phrase allowed to sent chills down Sebastian's spine. Who was controlling Isabella's emotions? Who had the power to dictate what she was permitted to feel? Isabella, Sebastian said softly. Who are you really? For a moment, Sebastian thought she might tell him the truth. Her mouth opened as if to speak, and he saw the war playing out behind her eyes. Duty versus desire, deception versus honesty. Then her phone buzzed, and Isabella immediately stepped back from Sebastian's touch, her mask sliding back into place as she read the message. I really do need to go, Isabella said, her voice carefully neutral. Emma has an early math lesson tomorrow, and I want to prepare some new exercises for her. Sebastian watched Isabella gather her things, noting the practiced efficiency of her movements. This wasn't the action of a tired teacher heading home. This was an operative preparing for extraction. Isabella, Sebastian called as she reached the door. Whatever you're involved in, whatever's happening, I can help. I have resources, connections, protection. You don't have to face this alone. Isabella paused with her hand on the doorknob, her shoulders rigid with tension. When she turned back to him, Sebastian saw genuine pain in her eyes. Some things are too dangerous to share, Sebastian. Some secrets are toxic to everyone they touch. She met his gaze directly. The best way you can help me is to trust that I would never let anything happen to you or Emma. Never. Before Sebastian could respond, Isabella was gone, leaving him alone in his penthouse with more questions than answers and the growing certainty that the woman he loved was about to disappear from his life forever. Sebastian poured himself 3 fingers of whiskey and settled into his leather chair, pulling out his phone to call the one person who might have answers, Daniel Karate Kid, his head of security and former CIA operative who specialized in tracking down ghosts. Jack, Sebastian said when the call connected. I need that background check on Isabella Hart expedited. And I need you to run facial recognition on a photograph I'm sending you. What's the priority level? Jack's voice carried the professional calm of someone accustomed to late-night crisis calls. Emma's life might depend on it, Sebastian replied, and heard Jack's intake of breath on the other end of the line. I'll have preliminary results within the hour, Jack promised. Sebastian, what aren't you telling me? Sebastian thought about the conversation he'd overheard. The mysterious man in his library. The package Isabella was supposed to extract within 72 hours. I think the woman I'm falling in love with might be planning to kidnap my daughter, Sebastian said quietly. Or worse. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several heartbeats. Where are you now? Jack asked finally. Home. Emma's asleep. Isabella just left. Stay put. I'm sending a security team to watch the building, and I'll be there within 20 minutes. Don't trust anyone until we figure out what we're dealing with. As Sebastian hung up, he thought about Emma sleeping peacefully upstairs, trusting that her father would keep her safe. He thought about Isabella's tears when he'd told her he was falling in love with her, and the genuine warmth in her voice when she'd promised never to hurt them. He thought about the photograph of Isabella pointing a gun at a dead man, and the cold efficiency in her voice as she'd discussed extraction timelines and operational security. Sebastian Cross had built an empire by making calculated decisions based on available evidence. But tonight, for the first time in his adult life, his heart and his head were telling him completely different things about the woman who held both their futures in her hands. The only question was which voice he should trust, and whether that choice would save his family or destroy them. Sebastian was still nursing his whiskey when his penthouse security system chimed with an intruder alert. The display showed a figure moving through his private elevator shaft. Someone with override codes that should have been known only to Sebastian, Emma, and his security team. Isabella was coming back. Sebastian's heart hammered as he watched the elevator indicator climb from the parking garage toward the penthouse level. She'd left less than an hour ago, claiming exhaustion and early morning preparations. Why return in the middle of the night using emergency access codes she shouldn't possess? The elevator doors opened, and Isabella emerged carrying something Sebastian hadn't noticed before, a black tactical bag that looked military issue. She moved through his penthouse with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd memorized the layout, heading directly toward his home office. Sebastian set down his whiskey and followed at a distance, keeping to the shadows as he watched Isabella bypass his office security system with practiced ease. She knew his passwords, his backup codes, even the secondary biometric scanners he'd installed after his divorce. Isabella Hart had been planning this for months. Sebastian's phone buzzed with a text from Jack. Background check complete. Isabella Hart doesn't exist. Sending details now. Sebastian opened the attached files as he watched Isabella work at his computer, her fingers flying over the keyboard with military precision. The background check revealed what Sebastian had feared. Isabella Hart was a completely fabricated identity, supported by forged documents and fictional employment history. But the facial recognition results made Sebastian's blood run cold. The woman he knew as Isabella Hart was actually Agent Sophia Mitchell, former CIA operative turned freelance assassin, wanted in connection with 12 high-profile murders across 4 continents. The photograph he'd found was from her last known operation in Prague, where she'd eliminated a Russian oligarch who'd been selling state secrets. Sophia Mitchell was a ghost who killed for money, and she'd been living in Sebastian's home for 6 months. Sebastian watched as Sophia, he couldn't think of her as Isabella anymore, connected a device to his computer that began downloading terabytes of data. Financial records, military contracts, government communications, classified research projects. Everything that made cross-industries valuable to foreign governments and terrorist organizations. She wasn't here to kidnap Emma. She was here to steal industrial and state secrets worth billions. But as Sebastian prepared to confront her, Sophia suddenly froze at the computer screen. Her body went rigid, and Sebastian heard her sharp intake of breath even from across the room. "No," Sophia whispered, her voice carrying genuine horror. "They lied to me." On the screen was a file Sebastian didn't recognize, a detailed operational plan titled Project Nightfall, Elimination of Cross-Family Unit. As Sebastian read over Sophia's shoulder, his world tilted off its axis. The document outlined a plan to murder Sebastian, Emma, and anyone else with knowledge of cross-industries quantum encryption project, a military application worth hundreds of billions to whoever controlled it. Sophia's mission wasn't just data theft. It was total elimination of the Cross family to prevent them from developing the technology further. "The bastards told me it was just surveillance," Sophia muttered, scrolling through assassination protocols and disposal methods. "They said I was gathering intelligence for a corporate acquisition." Sebastian stepped out of the shadows, and Sophia spun around with reflexes that confirmed her lethal training. For a split second, Sebastian found himself staring down the barrel of a gun that had appeared in Sophia's hand like magic. "How long have you been watching?" Sophia asked, her voice steady despite the weapon trembling slightly in her grip. "Long enough to know that Isabella Hart is dead," Sebastian replied, fighting to keep his voice calm. "But not long enough to know if Sophia Mitchell is planning to kill me and my daughter." Sophia's face crumpled as she realized how much Sebastian knew. The gun in her hand wavered, and Sebastian saw the internal war playing out across her features. "I never wanted this," Sophia whispered. "I was told it was corporate espionage, not assassination. I was told you were developing weapons for dictatorships, not quantum encryption for NATO allies." "Who hired you?" Sebastian demanded. "Viktor Kozlov," Sophia replied, and Sebastian's heart sank. Kozlov was a Russian arms dealer with connections to every terrorist organization and rogue state on the planet. If Kozlov wanted the quantum encryption technology, he planned to sell it to the highest bidder regardless of the global consequences. "How much does he know?" Sebastian asked. "Everything," Sophia admitted. "Your security protocols, your daily routines, Emma's school schedule, your business travel plans. I've been feeding him intelligence for 6 months." Sebastian felt the walls closing in around him as he realized the scope of the betrayal. Every intimate moment he'd shared with Isabella had been transmitted to a man who wanted to murder his family. Every detail about Emma's life had been catalogued and weaponized. "They're coming, aren't they?" Sebastian said quietly. "Tonight." Sophia nodded miserably. "Kozlov's cleanup crew is already en route. They think I'm still working for them, that I'll disable your security and provide them with access to both the technology and your family." Sebastian's mind raced through contingencies and escape plans, but every option seemed to end with Emma in danger. Kozlov's reputation for thoroughness meant there would be no safe house, no hiding place, no protection Sebastian could buy that would keep them alive once the Russian decided they were a liability. "You could have warned me," Sebastian said. "You could have told me the truth weeks ago. I thought I could complete the data extraction and disappear before anyone got hurt," Sophia replied. "I thought I could protect you both by making this look like a successful operation that left you alive but neutralized as a threat. By making me fall in love with you?" Sebastian's voice carried a pain that made Sophia flinch. "That wasn't part of the plan," Sophia said quietly. "That was never supposed to happen." Sebastian stared at this woman who'd become the center of his world, trying to reconcile the gentle teacher who'd kissed him goodnight with the professional killer who'd been systematically betraying his family for months. "Do you have any real feelings for me?" Sebastian asked. "For Emma? Or was it all just an act to complete your mission?" Sophia lowered her weapon, her eyes filling with tears that looked genuine despite everything Sebastian now knew about her capacity for deception. "Every moment we've shared has been real for me," Sophia said. "Every laugh with Emma, every quiet evening with you, every time I've tucked her into bed and pretended I belonged in your family. It's been the most genuine I've ever allowed myself to be. But you still betrayed us. I was trying to save you." Sophia's voice broke with emotion. Kozlov's original plan was immediate elimination. "I convinced him that a longer-term approach would be more effective, that I could gather better intelligence if you trusted me. I bought you 6 months of life that you wouldn't have had otherwise." Sebastian heard the truth in her voice, but it did nothing to diminish the magnitude of her betrayal. "And now Kozlov knows I've been compromised. The file on your computer, it wasn't supposed to be there. Someone uploaded it remotely while I was accessing your system, probably to test my loyalty." Sophia met Sebastian's eyes directly. "They know I've developed feelings for you and Emma. They know I can't be trusted to complete the assassination." Sebastian felt a chill of understanding. "So they're coming to finish the job themselves." "Within the hour," Sophia confirmed. "A 12-man tactical team with orders to eliminate all witnesses and retrieve the quantum encryption research." Sebastian's phone buzzed with an incoming call from Jack, and he answered immediately. "Sebastian, we have a problem." Jack's voice was tight with urgency. "Satellite surveillance shows 3 vehicles moving toward your building, all with heat signatures consistent with armed assault teams. You need to get Emma and evacuate immediately." "Too late," Sebastian said, watching Sophia check her own phone. "They're already here." Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Sebastian could see rappelling lines descending from a helicopter that had appeared silently above his building. Professional insertion, military precision, overwhelming force designed to ensure no one escaped alive. "Kozlov's not taking any chances," Sophia said grimly. "He's sending the Spetsnaz team he keeps on retainer for situations exactly like this." Sebastian looked at this woman who destroyed his life and might now be the only hope of saving it. "Can you get us out of here?" Sophia met his gaze, and Sebastian saw steel resolve replacing the guilt and fear in her eyes. "I can try. But Sebastian, you need to understand that everything changes now. The life you've known, the safety you've built for Emma, it's all gone. Even if we survive tonight, Kozlov will never stop hunting you." "Then we make sure he can't hunt anyone ever again," Sebastian replied with grim determination. Sophia's expression shifted to something Sebastian had never seen before. The face of Sophia Mitchell, professional killer, preparing for war. "Wake Emma," Sophia ordered, her voice carrying absolute authority. "Tell her we're playing a game where she has to be very quiet and very brave." And Sebastian, she handed him a backup weapon from her tactical bag. "Whatever you thought you knew about me, whatever feelings you had for Isabella Hart, put them aside. The woman you need right now is someone you've never met." As explosion sounds echoed from the building's lower levels, Kozlov's team breaching the lobby, Sebastian realized his quiet life as a billionaire businessman was over. Now he was in a war against one of the world's most dangerous men, and his only ally was the woman who'd betrayed him. The question wasn't whether they could trust each other. The question was whether they could survive long enough to save Emma and stop Kozlov from acquiring technology that could destabilize the entire world. My beautiful souls, are you feeling that tension building? Sebastian's world just completely shattered, but sometimes our greatest enemies become our most powerful allies. Drop a comment below. Do you think Sophia's feelings are real or just part of her cover? And make sure you're subscribed because this story is about to get absolutely explosive. Emma Cross woke to her father's gentle hand on her shoulder, but something in his eyes made her immediately alert despite the late hour. At 8 years old, Emma had inherited Sebastian's intelligence and intuition, traits that now served as her early warning system. "Daddy," Emma whispered, sitting up in her bed. "Is something wrong?" "We're going to play a special game, Princess," Sebastian said quietly, helping Emma into her robe and slippers. "Remember the emergency drills we practiced? The ones where we have to be very quiet and move very fast." Emma's eyes widened with understanding. "Is it really happening? Are the bad people coming?" Before Sebastian could answer, Sophia appeared in the doorway wearing all black tactical gear, her gentle teacher facade completely gone. She moved with lethal grace, checking the hallway before entering Emma's room with a military-grade assault rifle that looked enormous in her hands. "Emma, sweetheart," Sophia said, her voice still carrying the warmth that had made the little girl trust her. "I need you to listen very carefully. Some very dangerous people are trying to hurt your daddy, and we need to keep you safe. Can you be brave for us?" Emma looked between her father and the woman she'd known as Isabella, processing the transformation with the adaptability of childhood. "You're not really a teacher, are you?" "I am a teacher," Sophia replied honestly. "I've learned more about mathematics and literature in the past 6 months than I ever thought possible. But you're right, I'm also other things. Things that might help keep you safe tonight." The building shuddered as another explosion rocked the lower floors, and Sebastian could hear the distinct sound of gunfire echoing up through the elevator shafts. Kozlov's team was moving fast, eliminating building security and cutting off escape routes with professional efficiency. "The elevator and stairwells are compromised," Sophia reported, listening to communications chatter through her earpiece. "They've got the building surrounded, and they're moving up floor by floor." "What about the panic room?" Sebastian asked. Sophia shook her head. "Kozlov knows about it. I provided building schematics as part of my intelligence reports. They'll have cutting torches and explosives specifically designed to breach reinforced safe rooms." Sebastian felt despair creeping in as he realized how thoroughly his security had been compromised. Every defense he'd built, every contingency he'd planned, had been undermined by months of Sophia's intelligence gathering. "There is one option," Sophia said hesitantly. "But you're going to have to trust me completely." "I don't trust you at all," Sebastian replied bluntly. "But right now, you're the only hope Emma has of surviving the night." Sophia nodded, understanding the distinction. "There's a private helipad on the roof of the building across the street. If we can reach it, I have a pilot on standby who can get us out of Manhattan." "How do we get across the street from the 60th floor?" Emma asked with the logical pragmatism that made her father proud even in this terrifying moment. "We rappel," Sophia replied, pulling specialized climbing gear from her tactical bag. "I know it sounds scary, but I've done this hundreds of times, and I promise I won't let anything happen to either of you." Sebastian stared at the woman proposing to lower his 8-year-old daughter 60 stories down the side of a Manhattan skyscraper in the middle of a firefight. "Are you insane?" "Probably," Sophia admitted. "But the alternative is waiting here for Kozlov's team to reach us, and that's not an alternative at all." The sound of boots in the stairwell was getting closer. Heavy, disciplined movement that suggested military training. Sebastian could also hear his building's security team attempting to mount a defense, but they were outgunned and outnumbered. "How do I know you're not leading us into a trap?" Sebastian demanded. "How do I know this isn't all part of Kozlov's plan?" Sophia met his eyes with an expression of absolute honesty. "Because if I were still working for Kozlov, you'd already be dead. Because I've spent 6 months learning to love your daughter like she was my own. Because the man who hired me just betrayed me as thoroughly as he betrayed you." She pulled out her phone and showed Sebastian a text message. "Mitchell compromised. Execute all targets immediately. No survivors. Kozlov wants me dead too," Sophia continued. "I know too much about his operation, and I've proven I can't be trusted to follow orders when emotions are involved. We're all targets now." Emma surprised both adults by speaking up with remarkable composure. "Daddy, I think we should trust Isabella. I mean Sophia. She's been protecting us for months, even when she was supposed to hurt us. That means she's good, right?" Sebastian looked at his daughter, brave, intelligent, trusting despite everything she'd overheard, and realized she'd grasped something that his paranoia had obscured. Sophia's betrayal of her employers in favor of protecting Emma and Sebastian was itself evidence of where her true loyalties lay. "Okay," Sebastian said finally. "But if anything happens to Emma..." Then nothing else will matter, Sophia finished. I understand. Sophia moved with practiced efficiency, setting up rappelling anchors while Sebastian helped Emma into a specialized safety harness. The little girl was frightened, but trying to be brave, following Sophia's instructions with the trust that had defined their relationship for 6 months. The most important thing is to stay calm, Sophia told Emma as she checked the girl's equipment. I'm going to be attached to you the whole way down, so even if you get scared and let go, I'll keep you safe. Your daddy will be on a separate line right next to us. The door to Sebastian's penthouse exploded inward as Kozlov's tactical team breached the main entrance. Sebastian could hear boots spreading through his home, systematic room by room clearing that would reach Emma's bedroom within minutes. Now or never, Sophia said, opening Emma's bedroom window and letting in the cold October air 60 stories above Manhattan's streets. Sebastian watched in terrified amazement as Sophia clipped Emma to her harness and prepared to step out into empty space. Despite everything that had happened, despite all the lies and betrayal, Sophia was risking her life to save his daughter. Emma, Sebastian said, kneeling beside his brave little girl. I love you more than anything in the world. Whatever happens tonight, remember that. I love you too, Daddy, Emma replied, then looked at Sophia with complete trust. Are you ready, Sophia? Ready, Sophia confirmed, and Sebastian saw tears in her eyes as she prepared to protect the child she'd come to love. The bedroom door exploded inward just as Sophia stepped out the window with Emma. Sebastian followed immediately, his business suit-clad body swinging out into the Manhattan night as gunfire erupted from the bedroom behind them. 60 stories above the street, suspended by ropes and faith, Sebastian found himself completely dependent on the woman who'd betrayed his trust, but might be the only person capable of saving his family. As they descended past floor after floor of his building, Sebastian could see Kozlov's men taking positions at windows, preparing to cut their rappelling lines and send them plummeting to their deaths. Faster, Sophia urged, her voice carrying clearly despite the wind. They're repositioning for sniper shots. Sebastian looked down at the street far below, then across at the neighboring building where their salvation might wait. The gap between buildings was wider than he'd realized, the wind stronger, the margin for error non-existent. Sophia, Sebastian called as bullets began sparking off the building's facade around them. If we don't make it, we're going to make it, Sophia replied with absolute conviction. All of us. Together. But as Sebastian watched enemy snipers taking position in his own building's windows, he realized their escape was just the beginning of a longer game. Kozlov had resources, connections, and the patience of someone who'd never failed to eliminate a target. Even if they survived the next few minutes, they would be running for the rest of their lives. Unless they found a way to turn the tables and become the hunters instead of the hunted. As another burst of gunfire forced them to swing away from the building's facade, Sebastian made a decision that would change everything. He wasn't going to run from Viktor Kozlov. He was going to destroy him. The landing on the opposite building's rooftop was harder than Sebastian had anticipated, his business shoes finding no purchase on the rain-slicked concrete as Sophia expertly guided their descent. Emma clung to her with the trust of a child who'd accepted that her bedtime stories teacher was also someone who could rappel down skyscrapers while under fire. The helicopter is 3 minutes out, Sophia said, checking her secure phone as gunfire continued to echo from Sebastian's building across the street. But we have a problem. Sebastian was helping Emma out of her safety harness when he saw what Sophia meant. Black SUVs were surrounding the building below them, and more vehicles were approaching from multiple directions. Kozlov's operation was larger than any of them had realized. How many men does he have? Sebastian asked. In Manhattan? Maybe 50, Sophia replied grimly. Kozlov's been planning this for months. He has backup teams, contingency plans, probably bought half the NYPD night shift. Emma tugged on Sebastian's jacket with the urgency of someone who'd spotted something adults had missed. Daddy, look at the helicopter. Sebastian followed his daughter's gaze to see a sleek black aircraft approaching their position. But as it got closer, he realized it wasn't the rescue Sophia had promised. The helicopter was military spec, heavily armed, and definitely not on their side. That's not your pilot, is it? Sebastian asked. Sophia's face went pale as she recognized the aircraft. No, that's Kozlov himself. The helicopter settled onto the rooftop with practiced precision, and Sebastian found himself face to face with the man who'd been orchestrating his destruction for months. Viktor Kozlov emerged from the aircraft wearing an expensive suit that couldn't hide the predator beneath, a Russian bear who'd built an empire on other people's graves. "Agent Mitchell," Kozlov said in accented English, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to absolute obedience. "I must admit I'm disappointed. 6 months of perfectly executed infiltration, ruined by sentiment." Sophia stepped protectively in front of Emma and Sebastian, her weapon trained on Kozlov despite the tactical teams that had taken positions around the rooftop. "The mission parameters changed, Victor. You told me this was corporate espionage, not family annihilation." "I told you what you needed to hear to complete your assignment," Kozlov replied with casual indifference. "Surely you understand the concept of operational security." Sebastian studied the man who'd destroyed his life, noting the calculation behind Kozlov's eyes and the way his men moved with military precision. This wasn't just about money or technology. This was personal. "What do you really want?" Sebastian demanded. "The quantum encryption technology could be stolen without murdering my family." "Why make this personal?" Kozlov's smile was cold as winter in Siberia. "Because 10 years ago, Cross Industries developed the missile guidance system that killed my son in Chechnya. NATO used your technology to eliminate what they called terrorist targets, including a 12-year-old boy whose only crime was being born Russian." Sebastian felt the weight of revelation settling around him like a shroud. This wasn't about current technology or future profits. This was revenge for a decade-old wound that had never healed. "I didn't know," Sebastian said quietly. "Of course you didn't know," Kozlov snarled. "American weapons manufacturers never know where their technology ends up. You build instruments of death and tell yourself they're for defense. But when my son died, I made a promise that everyone responsible would pay the same price I paid." "Your son's death was a tragedy," Sophia said carefully, her weapon still trained on Kozlov. "But Emma had nothing to do with what happened in Chechnya. She's innocent." "So is Alexei," Kozlov replied. "But innocence is no protection from the consequences of our father's choices." Sebastian felt ice forming in his chest as he realized the true scope of Kozlov's revenge. "You're not just after me. You're after Emma because you want me to experience exactly what you experienced." "A father who loses his child learns the true meaning of grief," Kozlov confirmed. "But I am not without mercy. You will be allowed to live long enough to understand what your technology cost me before you join your daughter." Emma stepped out from behind Sophia with the fearless courage that made Sebastian's heart break with pride and terror. "My daddy didn't mean to hurt your little boy," she said with 8-year-old directness. "He builds things to protect people, not hurt them." Kozlov stared at Emma with an expression that flickered between rage and something that might have been pain. "Your father builds weapons, little one. Pretty weapons with noble purposes, but weapons nonetheless. Then why don't you just take the computer stuff and leave us alone?" Emma asked with logical innocence. "If you have what you want, why do more people have to get hurt?" Sebastian watched Kozlov struggle with his daughter's question, seeing the war between vengeance and humanity playing out across the Russians' features. For a moment, Sebastian thought Emma's innocence might reach the grieving father beneath the professional killer. Then Kozlov's expression hardened into resolve. "Because some wounds require blood to heal." Sophia's voice cut through the tension with deadly calm. "Victor, there's something you need to know about the quantum encryption project. Something that changes everything." "Nothing changes anything," Kozlov replied, but Sebastian caught the flicker of curiosity in his eyes. "The military application you're so eager to acquire, it's not a weapon system," Sophia continued. "It's a communication protocol designed to prevent accidental missile launches. Sebastian's been trying to make sure what happened to your son never happens to anyone else's child." Kozlov went very still. "What are you saying?" Sebastian felt pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. "The quantum encryption isn't for targeting, it's for command verification. Military commanders would need confirmed authorization from multiple sources before launching any strike. It's designed to prevent exactly the kind of mistake that killed your son." The rooftop fell silent except for the sound of wind and distant sirens. Sebastian watched Kozlov process this information, seeing the foundation of his revenge crumbling as he realized his target had been trying to prevent future tragedies like the one that had destroyed his family. "You're lying," Kozlov said, but his voice lacked conviction. "The technical specifications are on Sebastian's computer," Sophia said. "You can verify everything I'm telling you. Cross Industries has been developing defensive technology, not offensive weapons." Sebastian made a decision that could either save his family or destroy them completely. I'll give you the quantum encryption technology freely, no strings attached. Use it to build communication systems that prevent the kind of mistake that killed Alexei. Turn your son's death into something that saves other children instead of destroying more families. Kozlov stared at Sebastian with an expression of confusion and growing uncertainty. The neat narrative of revenge that had driven him for 10 years was collapsing under the weight of information he'd never sought because it might have complicated his simple need for vengeance. You would do this? Kozlov asked. Even after everything I've done to your family? I would do it because of what you've done to my family, Sebastian replied. Because I now understand what grief can turn us into, and because Emma's right, the cycle of hurting people has to stop somewhere. Emma stepped forward again, this time approaching Kozlov with the fearless trust that had characterized her entire relationship with Sophia. What was your little boy's name? Alexei, Kozlov answered automatically, his voice softening despite himself. Alexei is a pretty name, Emma said seriously. If my daddy builds something that keeps other little boys named Alexei safe, would that make you feel better than hurting us? Sebastian watched this exchange with amazement and terror, seeing his 8-year-old daughter negotiating for their lives with wisdom that shouldn't have been possible at her age. Kozlov knelt down to Emma's eye level, and Sebastian saw tears threatening at the corners of the Russian's eyes. You remind me of him, brave and kind, asking questions that adults cannot answer. Then don't be the kind of adult who hurts children, Emma said simply. Be the kind who protects them. The silence stretched for an eternity before Kozlov slowly stood and holstered his weapon. His tactical teams remained in position, but Sebastian sensed a shift in the atmosphere, the possibility of resolution rather than destruction. There is still the matter of Agent Mitchell, Kozlov said finally. She has been exposed, compromised, emotionally attached. Standard protocol requires elimination. Sophia stepped forward, accepting her fate with the dignity of someone who'd always known this day would come. I understand. No, Sebastian said firmly. Sophia stays with us. Kozlov raised an eyebrow. You would protect the woman who betrayed you? I would protect the woman who chose love over loyalty to you, Sebastian replied. The woman who risked everything to save my daughter. The woman who proved that people can change, that redemption is possible, that we don't have to be prisoners of our past mistakes. Sebastian moved to stand beside Sophia, taking her hand in a gesture that surprised them both. We're a family now, all three of us. Whatever happens next, we face it together. Kozlov studied the three figures standing before him. A billionaire offering his technology freely, an assassin who'd chosen love over duty, and a child who'd touched the humanity he'd thought was long dead. Perhaps, Kozlov said slowly, it is time for old men to stop fighting wars that should have ended with their children's births. But as Kozlov turned toward his helicopter, Sebastian's secure phone buzzed with an emergency message that made his blood freeze. Mr. Cross, this is Agent Sarah Connor, FBI. We have your building surrounded and snipers trained on all targets. Surrender immediately, or we will be forced to assume you've been compromised by enemy agents. Sebastian realized they'd escaped Kozlov's vengeance only to walk into another trap, one that could destroy them all before they had a chance to build the future Emma had made possible. The game was far from over, and the stakes had just gotten infinitely higher. The FBI snipers' laser dots danced across the rooftop like deadly fireflies, painting red targets on Sebastian, Sophia, and Kozlov's men with surgical precision. Agent Sarah Connor's voice crackled through a megaphone from the building across the street, her words cutting through the Manhattan night like a blade. Victor Kozlov, you are surrounded by federal agents. Release the hostages and surrender immediately, or we will assume they have been compromised and respond accordingly. Sebastian felt his heart stop as he realized the FBI's interpretation of the situation. They saw Emma as a hostage, Sophia as a traitor, and himself as either dead or converted. In their effort to escape Kozlov's vengeance, they'd walked directly into the crosshairs of their own government. Daddy, Emma whispered, pressing close to Sebastian's leg as red laser dots swept across the rooftop. Why are the good guys pointing guns at us? Sebastian had no answer for his daughter's question because he was beginning to suspect there were no good guys left in this game. Only different levels of threat and betrayal. Kozlov's expression shifted from resignation to cold calculation as he assessed the new tactical situation. Agent Mitchell, he said quietly, it appears your government has decided to resolve this matter permanently. Sophia was studying the positioning of the FBI snipers with professional interest, and Sebastian didn't like what he saw in her expression. They have overlapping fields of fire, she reported. 12 confirmed shooters, probably more in reserve. Classic elimination formation. Elimination. Sebastian's voice carried disbelief and growing horror. They're federal agents. They don't assassinate American citizens. They do when those citizens are believed to be selling military secrets to foreign enemies, Kozlov replied with bitter amusement. Your agent Connor has been hunting me for 3 years. She will not risk allowing me to escape with quantum encryption technology, even if it means sacrificing your family to prevent it. Sebastian pulled out his phone to call Agent Connor directly, but Sophia grabbed his wrist with urgent force. Don't, Sophia said sharply. If you make contact now, they'll assume Kozlov is forcing you to communicate under duress. Any deviation from their expected responses will be interpreted as confirmation that you've been compromised. Emma tugged on Sebastian's jacket again, her 8-year-old mind cutting through the adult confusion with characteristic clarity. Can't we just tell them the truth? That we're all friends now and nobody wants to hurt anybody. The innocence of Emma's suggestion highlighted the impossibility of their situation. How could they explain that the Russian arms dealer who'd been hunting them was now their ally? How could they convince federal agents that the wanted assassin holding Emma's hand was actually protecting her? The truth is complicated, little one, Kozlov said gently, kneeling beside Emma with an expression that transformed his face from predator to grieving father. Sometimes good people make bad choices because they do not understand the whole story. Agent Connor's voice cut through their conversation with escalating threat. You have 60 seconds to release the hostages and surrender your weapons. After that, we will be forced to neutralize all threats to national security. Sebastian felt the walls closing in from every direction as he realized they were trapped between two forces, both claiming to protect American interests, both willing to sacrifice his family to achieve their goals. There might be a way out, Sophia said slowly, her tactical mind working through possibilities that made Sebastian's stomach clench with dread. But it requires us to trust each other completely. What kind of way out? Sebastian asked, though he suspected he didn't want to know the answer. Sophia pointed to Kozlov's helicopter, which was still running with its rotors spinning slowly. We stage a hostage scenario. Kozlov takes Emma and me aboard the aircraft while you negotiate with the FBI. Once we're airborne, we can contact international authorities and arrange a proper exchange. Kozlov gets asylum in exchange for testimony about arms-dealing networks. I get immunity for cooperation in his capture, and you get your daughter back safely. Sebastian stared at her in horror. You want me to let Kozlov fly away with Emma? I want us to survive the next 5 minutes, Sophia replied urgently. The FBI won't fire on the helicopter if they believe Emma is aboard as a genuine hostage. It buys us time to sort out the truth from a position of safety rather than standing on this rooftop waiting to be executed. Absolutely not, Sebastian said flatly. I'm not putting my daughter in a helicopter with a man who was planning to murder us 20 minutes ago. Kozlov's voice carried surprising gentleness as he addressed Sebastian's fear. Mr. Cross, I give you my word, as a father who lost his own child, that Emma will be safer with me than standing here waiting for your government to decide her fate. Emma looked between the adults with the wisdom that had been guiding their decisions all night. Daddy, I think we should do what Sophia says. I trust her, and I think maybe Victor is sad like you were when Mommy left, not scary like the bad guys in movies. Sebastian felt his heart breaking as he realized his 8-year-old daughter was displaying more courage and wisdom than any of the adults around her. Emma had assessed the situation, weighed the risks, and made a decision based on trust rather than fear. But before Sebastian could respond, Agent Connor's voice delivered an ultimatum that changed everything. Mr. Cross, we have intelligence suggesting your daughter may have been exposed to classified information during her captivity. Protocol requires medical and psychological evaluation to ensure she hasn't been programmed or compromised. Please move away from the other individuals immediately. Sebastian's blood turned to ice as he understood the implication. The FBI wasn't just planning to eliminate perceived threats. They intended to take Emma into protective custody indefinitely, treating her as a potential security breach rather than a victim. They want to take Emma, Sebastian said, his voice hollow with realization. Standard procedure for children exposed to foreign intelligence operations, Sophia confirmed grimly. She could be in federal custody for months while they determine if she poses a security risk. Kozlov's expression darkened with understanding. Your government intends to make Emma disappear, just as mine would. Different reasons, same result. Sebastian looked at his daughter, brave, brilliant, trusting, and realized that every choice led to losing her. If they stayed, the FBI would take Emma and possibly eliminate the adults as security threats. If they ran with Kozlov, Emma would be a fugitive for the rest of her life. There's a third option, Sebastian said slowly, an idea forming that was either brilliant or completely insane. What if we give them exactly what they want? What do you mean? Sophia asked. Sebastian pulled out his secure phone and began uploading files directly to the FBI's tactical command frequency. The complete quantum encryption protocols. Every line of code, every technical specification, every application note. I'm giving it all to Agent Connor right now, in real time, with full documentation proving its defensive technology designed to prevent civilian casualties. Sebastian, what are you doing? Sophia asked with growing alarm. I'm eliminating the reason for this entire conflict, Sebastian replied, his fingers flying over the phone's interface. If the technology is already in FBI custody, there's no reason to maintain the operation. No reason to treat us as threats. No reason to separate me from Emma. Agent Connor's voice crackled over the radio with confusion. Mr. Cross, we're receiving massive data transfers from your device. Please explain your intentions. My intentions are to give you everything you think Kozlov is trying to steal, Sebastian called out, his voice carrying clearly across the rooftop. The quantum encryption project, the military applications, the theoretical frameworks, it's all yours. Consider it a patriotic donation to national security. Sebastian could see movement in the FBI positions as agents consulted with their superiors about this unexpected development. Giving away billions of dollars in intellectual property wasn't standard behavior for someone under duress. Agent Connor, Sebastian continued, you'll find documentation proving that Mr. Kozlov was operating under false information about the technology's applications. The quantum encryption system is designed to prevent exactly the kind of mistake that killed his son 10 years ago. We've been working toward the same goal, preventing civilian casualties, just from different starting points. The rooftop fell silent except for wind and the distant sound of sirens as both sides processed this revelation. Sebastian had just transformed a complex hostage situation into a straightforward diplomatic incident with a technological solution. Daddy, Emma said quietly, did you just give away all your computer stuff to save us? I gave away the one thing that was making us targets, Sebastian replied, kneeling beside his daughter. Sometimes the best way to protect what matters most is to stop holding on to what matters least. Kozlov was staring at Sebastian with an expression of amazement and respect. You would sacrifice your life's work to protect your family? I would sacrifice anything to protect my family, Sebastian replied without hesitation. The technology was supposed to save lives. If giving it away saves the lives that matter most to me, then it served its purpose. Agent Connor's voice returned with a different tone, less hostile, more confused. Mr. Cross, our technical team is confirming that the uploaded data appears to be genuine defensive technology rather than weapons applications. However, we still need to debrief all parties involved and ensure there are no ongoing security threats. I understand, Sebastian called back. But I have one condition. My daughter remains with me throughout any debriefing process. She's 8 years old. She's been through enough trauma tonight, and separating her from her father would serve no legitimate security purpose. There was a long pause before Agent Connor responded. That can be arranged. Mr. Kozlov, are you prepared to surrender peacefully and provide full cooperation with our investigation? Kozlov looked at Emma, who was watching him with the trusting eyes of a child who believed in second chances. I am prepared to tell you everything about my operations in exchange for the opportunity to help implement Mr. Cross's technology in ways that honor my son's memory. Sebastian felt a shift in the atmosphere as the immediate threat of violence began to recede. But as FBI agents prepared to secure the rooftop, Sophia stepped closer to him with an expression of profound sadness. Sebastian, Sophia said quietly, you realize what this means for me. I'm a wanted fugitive with 12 murders on my record. Even with Kozlov's cooperation and your testimony, the best I can hope for is life imprisonment. Sebastian felt his heart breaking as he realized that saving his family meant losing the woman who'd risked everything to protect them. There has to be another way. There isn't, Sophia replied with gentle finality. I've made my peace with that. The important thing is that you and Emma are safe." Emma surprised them all by stepping between Sophia and the approaching FBI agents. "Wait," she said with 8-year-old authority. "Sophia saved us. She chose to protect us instead of helping the bad guys. Doesn't that make her a good guy now?" Agent Connor had reached the rooftop and was close enough to hear Emma's question. Sebastian saw the FBI agent studying Sophia with professional interest, noting the way the wanted assassin had positioned herself protectively near Emma throughout the entire confrontation. "That's an interesting perspective," Agent Connor said carefully. "Ms. Mitchell, are you prepared to provide full cooperation in dismantling international assassination networks?" Sophia met the agent's eyes with steady resolve. "I can give you 36 names, 12 different organizations, and enough operational intelligence to prevent hundreds of murders. But I want immunity for any crimes committed while protecting Mr. Cross and his daughter." Sebastian stepped forward, taking Sophia's hand in front of the FBI agents and Kozlov's men and his own daughter. "I want her to have immunity too. Sophia Hart, Isabella Hart. Whatever her real name is, she's part of my family now. We protect each other." Agent Connor studied the unlikely group standing before her. A billionaire who'd given away his fortune to save his family, a Russian arms dealer offering to become a government witness, an assassin choosing love over loyalty, and a child whose wisdom had guided them all toward redemption. "This is highly irregular," Agent Connor said finally. "But given the intelligence value of Mr. Kozlov's cooperation and the national security implications of the quantum encryption technology, I believe we can arrange something." As FBI agents began the process of securing the scene and taking statements, Sebastian realized that their ordeal was finally approaching an end. But he also knew that the real work was just beginning. The work of building a life together from the ashes of betrayal, the work of learning to trust again, the work of proving that love could triumph over fear. Emma tugged on his jacket one more time, her small voice cutting through the organized chaos of the federal response. "Daddy," she said seriously, "are we going to be okay now?" Sebastian looked at his daughter, then at Sophia, then at Kozlov, who was quietly mourning a son he'd never see again, but whose memory might finally find peace. "Yes, princess," Sebastian said, meaning it with every fiber of his being. "We're going to be better than okay. We're going to be family." But as federal agents led them toward a future none of them could predict, Sebastian couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest challenges still lay ahead. Learning to trust Sophia completely. Helping Emma process the trauma of this night. Building a life that honored both the love they'd found and the prices they'd all paid for it. The darkest hour was ending, but dawn was still nowhere in sight. 3 weeks later, Sebastian sat in a secure FBI debriefing facility in Virginia, watching through one-way glass as Emma played with building blocks while a child psychologist evaluated her mental state. His daughter appeared remarkably resilient, chattering happily about her adventure, and asking when she could see Sophia again. The question everyone wanted answered was the same one haunting Sebastian's every waking moment. When would they be allowed to rebuild their lives, and what would those lives look like? "Mr. Cross." Agent Connor entered the observation room carrying a thick file that could contain either salvation or destruction. "We need to discuss your family's future." Sebastian turned from the window, steeling himself for whatever verdict the FBI had reached. "How much longer will Emma need to be in protective custody?" "That depends entirely on choices you make in the next few minutes," Agent Connor replied, setting the file on the conference table between them. "We've completed our investigation of the quantum encryption breach, and frankly, the results are unprecedented." Agent Connor opened the file to reveal photographs of Kozlov in FBI custody, looking more like a broken father than a dangerous arms dealer. Viktor Kozlov has provided intelligence that's already prevented 4 major terrorist attacks and exposed a weapons trafficking network spanning 12 countries. The information he's given us is worth more than every prosecution we might have pursued. "What about Sophia?" Sebastian asked, the question that had been consuming him for 3 weeks. "Agent Mitchell presents a more complex situation," Connor admitted. "Her cooperation has been exemplary, and her intelligence about international assassination networks is invaluable. However, she's still wanted in connection with multiple homicides across several jurisdictions." Sebastian felt his heart sinking until Agent Connor continued with something that might have been a smile. "However, the Attorney General has agreed to an unprecedented arrangement. Complete immunity in exchange for 5 years of consulting work with federal law enforcement. Ms. Mitchell would be placed in witness protection with a new identity, but she'd be free to build a normal life. Witness protection, Sebastian repeated slowly. That means new identities for all of us. Not necessarily, Agent Connor replied. You and Emma could maintain your current identities if you're willing to accept certain security restrictions. Regular check-ins, monitored communications, restricted international travel for a few years. Sebastian thought about the life he'd built, cross-industries, his Manhattan penthouse, the corporate empire that had defined his identity for a decade. All of it felt hollow compared to the possibility of protecting the family he'd discovered in the midst of chaos. There's something else, Agent Connor said, pulling out another document. The quantum encryption technology you donated has attracted attention at the highest levels of government. The Pentagon wants to offer you a consulting contract that would make you very wealthy while serving national security interests. I'm not interested in rebuilding my fortune, Sebastian said quietly. I just want to keep my family safe. That's what I hoped you'd say, Agent Connor replied, and Sebastian caught something approving in her expression. Because there's a third option we'd like you to consider. The door opened, and Sebastian's heart stopped as Sophia entered the room. She wore simple civilian clothes and looked tired, but somehow more peaceful than he'd ever seen her. Behind her walked Emma, who immediately launched herself into Sebastian's arms with 8-year-old exuberance. Daddy, Sophia's back. The nice lady said we might get to live together like a real family. Sebastian looked over Emma's head to meet Sophia's eyes, seeing hope and uncertainty warring in her expression. Is that true? The FBI is proposing a joint protective arrangement, Agent Connor explained. You, Emma, and Ms. Mitchell would relocate together under a family protection protocol. New location, new identities for Sophia, but the three of you would remain together as a family unit. Sebastian felt emotions threatening to overwhelm him as he realized the government was offering them exactly what he'd been afraid to hope for. Where? Montana, Sophia said, her voice carrying wonder as if she couldn't believe it herself. A ranch outside of Billings. Enough land for Emma to have horses, clean air, no corporate espionage or international assassins for 1,000 miles in any direction. Emma was practically vibrating with excitement. Horses, Daddy. And Sophia said she knows how to build tree houses and teach me to fish and all kinds of outdoor stuff she never got to do when she was little. Sebastian looked at this woman who'd risked everything to protect his daughter, who'd chosen love over loyalty and redemption over revenge. The woman who'd taught him that trust wasn't about never being betrayed. It was about finding someone worth forgiving when betrayal transformed into salvation. There's one more thing, Sophia said quietly, reaching into her pocket to pull out a small velvet box. I know this isn't traditional, and I know we've only been together for 6 months, most of which was built on lies, but... Sebastian's breath caught as Sophia opened the box to reveal a simple diamond ring that somehow managed to capture all the light in the sterile FBI conference room. I've never had a real family, Sophia continued, her voice shaking with emotion. I've never had anyone who knew the worst things about me and chose to love me anyway. I've never had someone worth becoming a better person for. Emma was watching the exchange with wide eyes, clearly understanding that something monumentally important was happening. Sebastian Cross, Sophia said, dropping to one knee in front of him while their daughter watched with delight. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that love can triumph over any mistake, any betrayal, any past that threatens to define us? Sebastian stared at this incredible woman who'd walked into his life as a weapon and transformed herself into his salvation. He thought about trust and forgiveness, about second chances and new beginnings, about the family they'd forged in the fires of the most dangerous night of their lives. Yes, Sebastian said, his voice thick with emotion as he took the ring and slipped it onto his finger. Yes to Montana, yes to horses and tree houses and teaching Emma to fish. Yes to building a life that has nothing to do with billionaires or assassins or corporate empires. Yes to everything, Emma added with 8-year-old authority, because you're both being silly grown-ups who obviously love each other and should have figured this out weeks ago. Agent Connor was smiling as she watched the family reunion, but she still had business to conclude. There is one final matter. Mr. Kozlov has requested to speak with you all before his sentencing. Something about honoring his son's memory. An hour later, they sat across from Viktor Kozlov in a secure meeting room, the Russian arms dealer looking smaller and older than he had on that Manhattan rooftop. The rage that had driven him for 10 years had been replaced by something that might have been peace. "I wanted to thank you," Kozlov said simply, addressing Emma as much as her parents. "Your father's technology will be used to create communication systems that prevent the kind of mistake that killed Alexei. My son's death will finally serve a purpose greater than revenge." "What will happen to you?" Emma asked with the directness that had been their guiding light. "I will spend many years in prison," Kozlov replied honestly. "But I will spend them knowing that other fathers will not experience what I experienced. That is worth any punishment." Kozlov reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden toy soldier, painted in bright colors and worn smooth by years of handling. "This belonged to Alexei. I would like Emma to have it, so she remembers that children everywhere deserve protection from the mistakes of adults." Emma accepted the toy with the solemnity of someone who understood its significance. "I'll take good care of him. And when I'm older, maybe I can help build things that keep children safe too." Kozlov's eyes filled with tears as he nodded. That would honor Alexei's memory more than any revenge ever could. As they prepared to leave the facility and begin their journey to Montana, Sebastian realized that their story had transformed from a tale of betrayal and revenge into something much more powerful. A story of redemption, forgiveness, and the families we choose to build from the wreckage of our past mistakes. "Are you ready for this?" Sebastian asked Sophia as they walked toward the car that would take them to their new life. "I'm terrified," Sophia admitted with a smile that lit up her entire face. "I've never tried to be a normal wife and mother. I don't know how to bake cookies or help with homework or any of the things Isabella was supposed to teach me." "Good thing you have the rest of our lives to learn," Sebastian replied, taking her hand as Emma skipped ahead of them toward their future. As they drove away from the FBI facility toward Montana, and whatever came next, Sebastian felt something he hadn't experienced in years: complete and total hope for the future. They'd survived betrayal, assassination attempts, federal investigations, and the complete destruction of everything they'd thought they wanted. Now they were about to discover what they actually needed: each other, a quiet life, and the chance to prove that love really could conquer anything. The turning point wasn't just behind them. It was stretching out ahead of them like an open road leading to forever. 6 months after arriving in Montana, Sebastian stood on the porch of their ranch house watching Emma teach her new horse, Alexei, how to navigate a jumping course she'd designed herself. The irony wasn't lost on him that his daughter had named her horse after the Russian boy whose death had nearly destroyed their family, but somehow it felt right. Emma had a gift for transforming tragedy into hope. "She's getting good at that," Sophia said, emerging from the house with 2 cups of coffee and the peaceful expression of someone who'd finally found her place in the world. She wore jeans and a flannel shirt that bore evidence of her mornings spent baking bread, a skill she'd insisted on mastering as part of her transformation from international assassin to ranch wife. "She gets it from her mother," Sebastian replied, accepting the coffee and pulling Sophia close with the casual intimacy of 6 months of learning to be normal together. "Both of her mothers," Sophia corrected with a smile. "Emma's got your intelligence, her birth mother's fearlessness, and my apparently genetic ability to remain calm under pressure." Sebastian was about to respond when his satellite phone, their only connection to the outside world beyond the local sheriff's office, began ringing with the distinctive tone that meant federal emergency. They'd agreed to maintain minimal contact with their previous lives, but certain calls still had to be answered. "Mr. Cross," Agent Connor's voice carried across the Montana plains with crystal clarity. "I apologize for disturbing your family time, but we have a situation that requires your immediate expertise." Sebastian felt Sophia tense beside him as they both shifted back into the hypervigilant mode that had kept them alive through the darkest period of their lives. "What kind of situation?" "The quantum encryption technology you donated has been stolen from a secure Pentagon facility," Agent Connor replied. "Preliminary investigation suggests this was an inside job with foreign backing. We need your help to track down who took it and prevent it from being sold to hostile governments." Sebastian's mind raced through possibilities and implications. The quantum encryption system was supposed to prevent military accidents, but in the wrong hands, it could be reverse-engineered into the exact kind of targeting system that had killed Kozlov's son. "Do you have any leads?" Sebastian asked. "We do," Agent Connor replied grimly. "And this is where things get complicated. The theft was orchestrated by someone you know, your former business partner, Michael Corleone, the one whose betrayal led to your divorce." Sebastian felt the blood drain from his face as he processed this information. Michael had been sleeping with Sebastian's ex-wife Natasha, embezzling from Cross Industries, and generally destroying Sebastian's life when Sophia had first appeared as Emma's teacher. Sebastian had thought Michael was contained, neutralized, no longer a threat. How is that possible? Sebastian asked. Michael was arrested for corporate fraud. He should be in federal prison. He was released 3 weeks ago on a technicality, prosecutorial misconduct in the evidence collection phase, Agent Connor explained. Apparently, he spent his incarceration time making friends with exactly the kind of people who would pay billions for military encryption technology. Sophia had pulled out her own secure phone and was already accessing databases that most people didn't know existed. Sebastian, she said quietly, Michael isn't working alone. I'm seeing communications intercepts linking him to remnants of Kozlov's old network, the people who weren't captured when Victor surrendered. Emma had finished her writing lesson and was approaching the house with the intuitive awareness that had guided their family through every crisis. What's wrong? She asked immediately. You both have your scary faces on. Sebastian knelt down to his daughter's eye level, hating that their peaceful life was about to be disrupted by ghosts from his past. Princess, remember how we talked about how sometimes bad people from our old life might try to cause trouble? Is Uncle Michael being bad again? Emma asked with 8-year-old directness that cut straight to the heart of the matter. Sebastian winced at Emma's casual reference to Michael as uncle. A reminder that Michael had been part of their family before his betrayal, someone Emma had trusted and loved before discovering that trust could be weaponized. Yes, Sebastian said honestly. Uncle Michael took something that doesn't belong to him, and now we need to help get it back before he hurts people with it. Agent Connor's voice crackled through the satellite connection with increasing urgency. There's more, Sebastian. Intelligence suggests Michael is planning to auction the technology to the highest bidder. The sale is set for tomorrow night in Las Vegas, neutral territory where international criminals can gather without raising immediate suspicion. Sophia was already moving toward their secure equipment storage, her body language shifting from peaceful ranch wife to lethal operative with frightening efficiency. How many buyers? At least 6 confirmed, Agent Connor replied. North Korea, Iran, 3 different terrorist organizations, and a private military contractor with ties to African warlords. Whoever acquires this technology will have the ability to coordinate missile strikes with unprecedented precision. Sebastian felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders as he realized the scope of what they were facing. The technology he'd created to prevent civilian casualties was about to be perverted into the most sophisticated killing tool on the planet. What do you need from us? Sebastian asked, though he already suspected the answer. We need you to attend the auction, Agent Connor said. Michael doesn't know about your relocation or your arrangement with the FBI. As far as he's concerned, you're still a billionaire with resources and connections that would make you a credible bidder. You want us to go undercover, Sophia said, understanding the implications immediately. Pose as buyers while gathering intelligence for federal takedown. Exactly. But there's a complication. Michael specifically requested that any auction include the original developer of the technology. He wants you there, Sebastian, probably to verify the authenticity of what he's selling. Sebastian looked at Emma, who was listening to this conversation with the serious expression of someone who understood that adult decisions were about to affect her life again. What about Emma? Sebastian asked. I could stay with Grandpa Victor, Emma suggested, referring to Kozlov by the affectionate name she'd given him during his video calls from federal prison. Despite his crimes, the old arms dealer had become a surprisingly effective grandfather figure, teaching Emma chess and telling her stories about growing up in Russia. Absolutely not, Sebastian and Sophia said simultaneously. Emma stays here with a federal protection detail, Agent Connor said firmly. We're not putting an 8-year-old girl in the middle of an international arms deal. Emma crossed her arms with the stubborn expression that meant she was about to deploy 8-year-old logic against adult decision-making. But I helped solve the problem last time. And if Uncle Michael sees me, he might remember that he used to love me before he became bad. Sometimes people just forget how to be good, and seeing someone who still loves them helps them remember. Sebastian felt his heart breaking as he realized Emma was offering to put herself in danger to redeem yet another adult who'd failed her. His daughter had an inexhaustible capacity for forgiveness and hope, traits that made her both precious and vulnerable. Princess, Sebastian said gently, Uncle Michael isn't sad like Victor was. Uncle Michael is angry and greedy, and those are much more dangerous feelings. Then you need to be extra careful, Emma replied with the wisdom that continued to guide their family. And you need to come home safe so we can finish building the tree house. Sophia knelt beside Sebastian and Emma, her expression serious as she addressed the little girl who'd become her daughter in every way that mattered. Emma, what your daddy and I are about to do is very dangerous. If something goes wrong, if we don't come back, I need you to know that every day of loving you has been the greatest adventure of my life. You're going to come back, Emma said with absolute confidence. Because you're the strongest daddy and the smartest mommy in the world, and bad guys are afraid of people who love each other as much as we do. 8 hours later, Sebastian and Sophia walked into the Bellagio Casino in Las Vegas wearing evening wear that concealed enough weaponry to outfit a small army. Sebastian's tuxedo had been specially tailored to accommodate body armor and communication equipment, while Sophia's cocktail dress hid more knives than most people-owned kitchen utensils. Mr. Cross. Michael Corleone's voice carried across the casino floor with the oily charm that had once convinced Sebastian to trust him with everything that mattered. I was so pleased when you confirmed your attendance. And Ms. Hart, or should I say Mitchell. Such a pleasure to finally meet the woman who's been causing so much excitement in federal law enforcement circles. Sebastian felt ice forming in his chest as he realized Michael knew exactly who Sophia was and what she'd done. Their cover was compromised before they'd taken 10 steps into enemy territory. Hello, Michael, Sebastian replied with forced casualness. I have to admit I'm impressed. Prison seems to have agreed with you. Prison taught me valuable lessons about patience and planning. Michael replied with a smile that never reached his eyes. It also introduced me to some fascinating business partners who share my appreciation for advanced military technology. Sophia had positioned herself with clear sight lines to all exits, her body language relaxed, but her eyes cataloging threats with professional precision. Mr. Corleone, I hope you understand the implications of what you're selling. The quantum encryption system wasn't designed as a weapon. Everything is a weapon, Ms. Mitchell, depending on how creatively you apply it, Michael replied. But please, let's not discuss business in such public surroundings. The auction begins in 1 hour, in the penthouse suite I've reserved for this evening's festivities. As they moved through the casino toward the private elevators, Sebastian caught sight of the other buyers Michael had assembled, a collection of the world's most dangerous criminals pretending to be legitimate business people. He recognized faces from FBI wanted posters, Interpol alerts, and international terrorism watch lists. Sebastian, Sophia murmured as they entered the elevator, this is bigger than we thought. Michael isn't just selling stolen technology. He's hosting a networking event for global arms dealers. I know, Sebastian replied quietly, which means we're not just stopping one sale. We're disrupting an entire criminal ecosystem. As the elevator climbed toward the penthouse, Sebastian thought about Emma back in Montana, probably helping the Federal Protection Detail with their evening chores while designing new jumping courses for Alexei. His daughter was safe, protected, building a normal childhood from the wreckage of her parents' extraordinary circumstances. Whatever happens tonight, Sebastian said to Sophia, we're doing this for her, for the world she deserves to inherit. For Emma, Sophia agreed, checking her concealed weapons one final time. And for every child whose parents want to believe their families are safe from the weapons we help create. The elevator doors opened to reveal Michael's penthouse auction room, a sophisticated setup that looked more like a legitimate business conference than an international arms deal. Until Sebastian noticed the armed guards positioned throughout the space and the high-tech jamming equipment designed to prevent any communications with the outside world. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an evening that will change the balance of global military power, Michael announced to the assembled criminals and dictators. Tonight, we're offering technology that will make the highest bidder the most feared military force on Earth. Sebastian realized they were trapped in a room full of the world's most dangerous people, bidding on technology that could start wars and topple governments. But as he looked at Sophia, calm, determined, absolutely lethal when protecting the people she loved, Sebastian felt something he hadn't expected. Confidence. They'd survived Kozlov's revenge, federal investigation, and the complete destruction of their previous lives. They'd built a family from betrayal, trust from deception, love from the ashes of everything that had tried to destroy them. Michael Corleone, and his collection of international criminals were about to discover what Sebastian and Sophia had learned over the past year. There was no force on Earth more dangerous than two people who would do anything to protect their family. The final battle was about to begin. And this time, Sebastian was ready to win. The auction proceeded with the polished efficiency of a legitimate business transaction, each bid raising the stakes for global security as criminals and dictators competed for technology that could reshape modern warfare. Sebastian watched Michael orchestrate the proceedings with the showmanship of someone enjoying his revenge, clearly relishing the power of controlling something Sebastian had created. But as the bidding approached $50 million, Sebastian noticed something that made him smile with grim satisfaction. Sophia had been systematically planting microcharges throughout the penthouse suite during her casual movements around the room. The current bid stands at $60 million, Michael announced. But before we conclude tonight's festivities, I'd like to invite the original developer to verify the authenticity of what we're selling. Sebastian stepped forward, playing his role as a potential buyer while accessing the quantum encryption interface on Michael's presentation system. As his fingers moved across the keyboard, he appeared to be confirming the technology's specifications for the assembled criminals. In reality, he was uploading a virus that would corrupt every copy of the stolen data while simultaneously transmitting the location and identities of every person in the room to FBI tactical teams positioned throughout Las Vegas. The technology is genuine, Sebastian announced to the room, though he caught Sophia's subtle nod indicating that her preparations were complete. However, there's something you should know about the quantum encryption system that wasn't included in tonight's documentation. Michael's expression shifted from triumph to suspicion. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the kill switch I built into the core programming, Sebastian replied with calm satisfaction. A failsafe that allows the original developer to remotely disable any unauthorized use of the technology. The room erupted into chaos as international criminals realized they'd been invited to bid on worthless code. But Sebastian was already moving toward Sophia as she triggered the charges that would seal the penthouse's exits and trap everyone inside until federal agents could make their arrests. You always were too clever for your own good, Michael snarled, pulling a weapon with the desperation of someone whose elaborate revenge had just collapsed around him. But before Michael could fire, Sophia moved with the lethal grace that had made her one of the world's most feared assassins. In 3 fluid motions, she disarmed Michael, disabled 2 of his guards, and positioned herself between Sebastian and the remaining threats in the room. It's over, Michael, Sebastian said as sirens began echoing through the Las Vegas night. The FBI has everything they need to dismantle the entire network you've been building. This isn't over, Michael spat as federal agents breached the sealed penthouse and began arresting the assembled criminals. You can't hide in Montana forever. There will always be people looking for revenge, looking for the technology you've created. Sebastian looked at this man who'd once been his friend, his business partner, someone he'd trusted with his secrets and his family. Michael's face was twisted with rage and entitlement, completely unable to understand that his betrayals had consequences beyond Sebastian's personal pain. You're right, Sebastian said quietly. There will always be people who want to use my work for evil purposes. But now there will also be people dedicated to stopping them. As FBI agents led Michael away in handcuffs, Agent Connor approached Sebastian and Sophia with an expression of professional admiration mixed with personal relief. Outstanding work, Agent Connor said. The intelligence we've gathered tonight will prevent dozens of terrorist attacks and shut down arms-dealing networks across 4 continents. What happens now? Sophia asked. Are we free to go home to Emma? More than free, Agent Connor replied with a rare smile. The Attorney General has authorized me to offer both of you permanent consulting positions with federal law enforcement. Completely voluntary, well compensated, and flexible enough to accommodate your family life in Montana. Sebastian looked at Sophia, seeing the same thought reflected in her eyes. They could continue protecting people without sacrificing the peaceful life they'd built with Emma. What would that involve? Sebastian asked. Sebastian would provide technical consultation on emerging threats involving military technology, Agent Connor explained. Sophia would help train federal agents in recognizing and countering international assassination networks. You'd work together, but only on cases that specifically require your unique expertise. Sophia squeezed Sebastian's hand with the excitement of someone who'd found the perfect balance between her lethal skills and her desire to build rather than destroy. We could actually help prevent the kind of tragedies that created people like Kozlov and Michael. And we could do it while still being home every night to help Emma with her homework, Sebastian added with growing enthusiasm. 3 hours later, they sat in the FBI's Las Vegas field office completing paperwork that would define the rest of their lives. Sebastian had officially donated all rights to the quantum encryption technology to the United States government, ensuring it would never again fall into criminal hands. Sophia had provided detailed intelligence about international criminal networks that would keep federal investigators busy for years. "There's one more thing," Agent Connor said as they prepared to leave. "Viktor Kozlov asked me to give you this." She handed Sebastian an envelope addressed to the Cross family, in Kozlov's careful handwriting. Inside was a single photograph, Emma sitting on Alexei the horse, grinning with the joy of a child who'd found her perfect companion. On the back of the photograph, Kozlov had written, "Some fathers are privileged to watch their children find happiness. Thank you for allowing this old man to experience such joy through Emma's letters. She has taught me that love truly can triumph over any darkness we create." Sebastian felt tears stinging his eyes as he realized Emma had been secretly corresponding with Kozlov, their daughter's capacity for forgiveness transforming a dangerous arms dealer into a protective grandfather figure. "He's requested permission to attend Emma's birthday party next month," Agent Connor added. "Under heavy federal supervision, of course. Apparently, he's been working on a wooden dollhouse in the prison workshop." Sophia was crying openly now, amazed by the family they'd somehow assembled from the most unlikely collection of people. "A year ago, I was a professional killer with no connections to anyone. Now I have a husband, a daughter, and apparently a Russian grandfather figure helping plan birthday parties. Love makes families out of the strangest circumstances," Sebastian agreed, pulling Sophia close as they prepared to fly home to Montana and the little girl who was waiting to hear about their latest adventure. The flight back to Montana gave them time to process everything that had changed in the past 24 hours. They'd neutralized Michael's threat, prevented international arms deals, and secured their family's future with meaningful work that served global security rather than corporate profits. But more importantly, they'd proven to themselves that the family they'd built could survive anything: betrayal, investigation, separation, and the constant threat of enemies from their past. "Do you think we're done now?" Sophia asked as their plane began its descent toward the small airfield near their ranch. "Do you think we've finally paid the price for all our past mistakes?" Sebastian thought about Emma waiting for them at home, probably designing new obstacles for Alexei's jumping course, while the Federal Protection Detail pretended not to be charmed by her constant chatter about horses and tree houses and the parents she knew would always come home to her. "I don't think we ever stopped paying for our mistakes," Sebastian said honestly. "But I think we've learned how to make those payments count for something positive. How to turn guilt into purpose, fear into courage, betrayal into deeper trust." As their plane touched down on Montana soil, Sebastian could see Emma waiting by the airfield fence, probably having convinced her protection detail to let her watch for their arrival. His daughter was jumping up and down with excitement, and Sebastian could practically hear her voice even through the aircraft's windows. "Welcome home," Sophia said softly, her hand finding his as they prepared to rejoin their daughter and resume their peaceful life. "Welcome home," Sebastian agreed, feeling the truth of those words settle into his bones with the satisfaction of someone who'd finally found where he belonged. They walked off the plane together, and Emma launched herself at them with the force of 8-year-old joy multiplied by 24 hours of worried anticipation. "Did you catch the bad guys?" Emma demanded, hugging both parents simultaneously. "Did you make sure they can't hurt anyone anymore?" "We caught them," Sebastian confirmed, lifting Emma into his arms while keeping one arm around Sophia. "And now we're home to stay." "Good," Emma said with satisfaction. "Because Alexei learned a new trick while you were gone, and Grandpa Victor sent plans for the dollhouse. And I think the baby chickens are going to hatch soon, and Mrs. Patterson from the general store brought cookies, and I have approximately 1,000,000 things to tell you about." Sebastian looked at Sophia over Emma's head, both of them smiling at their daughter's unstoppable enthusiasm for the ordinary miracles of their new life. "1,000,000 things sounds perfect," Sophia said, taking Emma's hand as they walked toward the truck that would carry them back to their ranch, their horses, their treehouse project, and the peaceful life they'd earned through courage, sacrifice, and an unwavering commitment to protecting what mattered most. As they drove home through the Montana plains under a canopy of stars that Emma insisted on counting aloud, Sebastian realized their story had become something he'd never expected when it began with a photograph falling from a teacher's bag. It had become a love story, not just between Sebastian and Sophia, but between all three of them and the life they'd chosen to build together. A life that honored their past mistakes while refusing to be imprisoned by them. A life that proved redemption was possible for anyone brave enough to choose love over fear, trust over suspicion, hope over revenge. Are we really done with adventures now? Emma asked sleepily as they pulled into their driveway. We're done with the dangerous kind, Sebastian promised. From now on, our adventures involve teaching horses new tricks and building the world's most elaborate tree house. And helping other families stay safe, Sophia added. Just from our home base in Montana, where the biggest threat is whether Alexei will jump over the fence to visit the neighbor's horses. Emma giggled as Sebastian carried her toward the house, her small arms wrapped trustingly around his neck. I like safe adventures better, she declared. They last longer and nobody gets scared. As they stepped through the door of their home, not a penthouse or a safe house or a federal facility, but a real home built on truth and trust and the daily choice to love each other despite every reason they'd been given to doubt, Sebastian felt the last piece of his fractured heart click into place. The billionaire who'd fallen for his daughter's teacher had discovered something worth infinitely more than any fortune he'd ever built. He'd discovered that the greatest wealth wasn't measured in dollars or power or corporate empires. It was measured in morning coffee shared with someone who knew all your secrets and loved you anyway. It was measured in bedtime stories read to a child who trusted you to keep her safe. It was measured in the quiet satisfaction of work that protected innocent people rather than enriching powerful ones. It was measured in love that had survived every test, overcome every obstacle, and emerged stronger than any force that had tried to destroy it. As Sebastian tucked Emma into bed that night, listening to her excited chatter about dollhouses and new horse tricks and the parents who'd come home safely from their last dangerous mission, he realized that their story's ending was actually its beginning. The beginning of a lifetime of safe adventures, shared laughter, and the daily miracle of a family that chose to love each other through everything life might bring their way. Beautiful souls, can you believe this incredible journey we've taken together? From deadly secrets and international conspiracies to Montana ranches and dollhouse plans, Sebastian, Sophia, and Emma have shown us that love really can transform any darkness into light. Their story proves that families aren't just born, they're built through courage, forgiveness, and the choice to protect what matters most. Asterisk asterisk. If this story filled your heart the way it filled mine, please drop a comment below sharing your thoughts about second chances, chosen families, and the power of love to overcome any betrayal. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you're missing out on more stories like this. Stories that prove happily ever after is possible for anyone brave enough to fight for it. Asterisk asterisk. Thank you for joining Sebastian, Sophia, and Emma on this emotional roller coaster. Remember, we all deserve love that sees our worst mistakes and chooses to build something beautiful from the ashes. Until next time, keep believing in the magic of second chances and the families we choose to create. Asterisk asterisk.